The St. Louis Cardinals have begun hiring some new and old faces to the coaching staff in the front office. We have got the latest on today's episode of Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinals fans. I'm JD Haffern, and I'm a national radio sports anchor, born and raised in the Lou, but a lifetime Cardinals fan. And I'm your host for Locked On Cardinals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. You can follow me on Twitter X at JD Sports Radio and the podcast at LO_Cardinals. Want to thank those of you who make Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube. This is a show serving Cardinal Nation and giving the best fans in baseball all of the info about the birds on the bat. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. So the Cardinals had a busy Tuesday, making multiple announcements and hiring. So let's run through them really quickly, and then we can talk a little more in depth about each one. We'll start off with the hiring of their new hitting coach, 53-year-old Brant will be taking over for Turner Ward in 2025. The team has also hired 32-year-old Robert Cerfolio as their new assistant general manager, player development and performance. You heard me right. He is 32 years old. Young man. And former Cardinal John Jay, who we're all very much familiar with, has been hired as a coach for the Major League staff. So out of these three moves that have been done, I think the one that's going to get the most controversy is probably the hitting coach, Brant. And as important as the other two hires are, the hitting coach hire was one that people were very much anticipating after it was announced that the team was going to move on from Turner Ward. And everybody's like, who's it going to be? Where are they going to go? Are they going to pull somebody? Is it going to be Albert Pujols? Is it going to be Yadier Molina? No, it wasn't going to be any of those guys. Brant is your guy. And he's an interesting hire, to say the least, considering what just happened to him in 2024, where he got fired. He got fired from his job as the bench coach offensive coordinator for the Seattle Mariners, not the Seattle Seahawks, the Seattle Mariners. Less than 6 months on the job following their dismal start offensive-wise, because they were winning ball games, but the offense was terrible to start the season. Apparently, this was the first time during the Jerry DiPoto Scott Service era that the Mariners have fired a hitting coach during the course of a season. Like, this is something they don't do very often. Yet, that is what just happened to Brant in the 2024 season. And again, he got hired, I think December is when he actually got hired by Seattle. So at the end of May, 6 months is all they gave him. And they were like, boom, you're out. We don't like what's happening here. You're out of here. So I've got a write-up. I went through and looked at some of the old articles that Seattle people had written about the firing earlier this year. Came across this one that is a writing about it. So let's get you through it. The club announced Brown's dismissal amid a season-long offensive slump. And they say season-long there, even though it was only 2 months, but whatever. The Mariners entered Friday, ranked 29th in Major League Baseball with 3.64 runs per game, and were tied for 28th in total runs this season. They lead all of baseball in strikeouts. They go on to quote manager Scott Service, who was also fired later on in August, by the way, said this about moving on from Brant. Obviously, we've had some struggles on the offensive side, and it's not all Brown's fault by any means. It's just, we want to make a change there, maybe a little bit different voice. With our players, we really need to get our guys focused back into doing what they do best. That's coaching. How do you get the most out of your guys? That's what we're going to focus on here going forward. Outfielder Mitch Haniger is in this article saying, our collective production as an offense kind of led to this decision. All of us don't feel too great about that. Brown is not the one to blame for that. It's not his fault. Kind of sounds eerily familiar to what Cardinals players have said about their coaches in the past when their production didn't live up to expectations. I mean, and it's not like they're trashing Brant Brown by any means, they're being stand up about, hey, this is not all on him. Like, this is also on us. They're not saying he's a terrible coach or he's a bad person. So that's a plus. Now, if you're not familiar with Brant Brown, he did play Major League Baseball, played with the Cubs, Pirates, Marlins as well during his playing days. Afterward, he got into coaching, started off in the minor leagues with the Rangers organization, then went to the minor leagues of the Mariners before going to the Dodgers, where he had a lot of success with the Dodgers. He was initially an assistant hitting coach / minor league hitting coordinator, ended up getting promoted to hitting strategist in 2019. And then at the end of the 2022 season was hired as the hitting coach for the Miami Marlins. Now, that Marlins team, when you go back and look at it, and this was the team where Skip Schumacher won Manager of the Year. They won 84 games. They went to the playoffs, but they lost 2 games en route. When you go back and look at that Marlins team, which is what I wanted to do, they weren't anything special offensively under Brant Brown. Like, I'm just looking at the stats here. It doesn't mean whatever he's doing behind the scenes isn't wonderful and great, but numbers is what matters, right? Production is what matters. And that 2023 season for the Marlins, they were last in the National League in runs scored. Now, it's going to go a little up and down here, so stay with me. Last in the NL in runs scored. Second, though, in total hits. 12th in doubles. Tied for 10th in home runs. Last in RBIs. Second to last in walks. Had the third lowest strikeout total, which is good. Second in batting average at 259. But 10th in OBP, 10th in slugging, and 10th in OPS. The Cardinals this past year ranked 12th in the National League in runs, 12th in home runs, 13th in RBIs, hitting with runners in scoring position. That was a big deal, right? That was like the glaring issue for the Cardinals this year that we brought up on numerous occasions. They ranked last in the National League in batting average with runners in scoring position at 229. They were last in slugging, last in OPS, last in homers, and in RBIs. They were terrible. They're just terrible with runners in scoring position. 14th in the NL in on-base percentage, 303 with runners in scoring position. So, how are the Marlins in 2023 with runners in scoring position? Among 15 National League teams again, they were 10th in batting average at 253. They were dead last in slugging at 398. They were dead last in OPS at 725. Tied for 10th in home runs with 39. And second to last in RBIs at 458. They were tied with the Cardinals for 9th for the most strikeouts, which is good. That they were down here, 9th. They weren't up in the upper 5 or anything like that, but they were 12th in walks and ranked 13th in on-base percentage at 327. Are these improvements on what the Cardinals just did in 2024? Yeah. But is it really that much better that anyone is going to be excited about this hiring? Like, you didn't poach somebody from a team that was top 5 in all these categories, and that person is coming in and bringing that, positive stigma. You're bringing in a guy who didn't have great success with runners in scoring position with that Marlins team and just got fired in Seattle for them sucking at hitting a baseball. That's your new hitting coach. Just looking at the stats. Now, this Marlins team, again, not loaded with hitting talent, but I don't think the Cardinals are loaded with hitting talent. We think they're better than what we saw this past year. But that Marlins team had Luis Ariz, who was very good with the Marlins and is very good with the Padres and was very good with the Twins. Jorge Soler had a big year, 36 home runs that year. Jazz Chisholm Jr., who's now a star for the Yankees, was on that team. He only played in 97 games that year. He was hurt. But only Arias Soler and then Brian De La Cruz, who got traded this past year from the Marlins to the Pirates, had an OPS plus over 100. Nobody else did. It's not like he raised the bar for a bunch of hitters on a team that were kind of where they should be. It's why I'm kind of like, I don't know how to get excited about this yet. I think the Cardinals on paper have the ability to be more talented offensively than this Marlins team that we're talking about that was under the Brant Brown influence. But these numbers I'm seeing and the fact that Seattle jumped ship from him 2 months into the season doesn't sound all that promising to me. It's hard to get excited about it. Again, I don't want to pass judgment on the guy and be like, oh, this is a terrible hire already. I'm not going to say that because I don't know what the goings on will be. Going through some videos and interviews and whatnot, it looks like Brant Brown is a very detailed kind of guy. I got a picture of him here, with the Marlins. There he is with the iPad, which I know people love to make fun of the Cardinals coaches for using iPads. There he is. But I saw that he can be very detailed. Some of the stuff might have been going over the heads of some of the Mariners hitters, and things needed to be simplified a little bit. Mo was talking about in his press conference today about how, it's kind of a short runway for him in Seattle, and that Brant Brown does have the ability to be kind of the in-between guy from what we had in St. Louis with Turner Ward and, what we've had in Jeff Albert, that he was kind of the middle guy between those two things. And that if he needs to be very detailed for the younger guys who enjoy that stuff, great. If he needs to simplify things for veteran guys and for younger guys who may not need all the detail, that he can do that too. Mo spoke about him as if they are very comfortable with what he's doing. And, kind of just in the tone of his voice, they were kind of like, yeah, I mean, kind of short runway in Seattle, which I said too. I'm like, that is very odd. It is very odd to hire a guy in December, hire him away from another team, and then 2 months into the season, you're already giving up on him. You're already punting from his ideas and his voice. And that in the interviews was the most thing I saw was people were like, maybe just a different voice. Maybe it's the way he approached the hitters, and they just didn't mesh well with him in Seattle. Perhaps that's what was going on. I don't know. I'm just saying the stats from what he did in Miami. Now, he had a lot of success in LA with the Dodgers, but he got a lot more money and a lot more talent there than the other places. The idea is you want these guys to be able to elevate talent that's not quite as good and bring them up to a different level, where I'm just looking at the stats. It's hard to say that he did that in Miami and in Seattle in the last 2 years, but again, we'll have to wait and see. Maybe it will be a match made in heaven. But again, it seems like one of those guys, old school baseball guys, are going to hate this guy because it just seems like he's very analytical, very numbers driven, a lot of fancy words. That's the vibe I'm getting about this. Well, maybe I'll be wrong. We are going to talk about the new assistant GM next because people are excited about this particular hire. We'll talk about it next on Locked On Cardinals. Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace in Major League Baseball that makes getting tickets faster and easier with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets, but it isn't just baseball. I mean, as cool as it would be to go to a Yankees-Dodgers World Series game at this time of year, St. Louis fans were in the Midwest, and we don't really have that going on right now. So we have to turn our attention to other things like Mizzou football. Big win this past week. What is it? Alabama this week, right? So maybe you want to go to that game. You could do that. You could do that with the Gametime app. Save up to 60% off by buying last-minute tickets for all sports, including college football, pro football, concerts, comedy, theater, more. NBA's firing up. It's opening night in the NBA tonight. They've got you covered if you're trying to get to any of this. If you're going to the Blues game, yeah, they can get you tickets there too. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use that code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB, LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. You can leave your comments on YouTube as well as on Twitter X anytime you want. That feedback always welcome and encouraged. The Cardinals have hired 32-year-old Rob Cerfolio to be their new assistant general manager, player development, and performance. Now, I would be lying to you if I knew a whole lot about Robert Cerfolio. 32-year-old from the Cleveland organization. There's his photo. Yep. He looks like a kid, right? Because he's young. He's a young man. Doesn't mean there's something wrong with him, but let's get some background on him. This is courtesy of Katie Wu over at The Athletic. Cerfolio joined the Guardians in 2015 after graduating from Yale University. The 32-year-old was named Cleveland's director of player development ahead of the 2022 season after spending 7 years in various roles in both player development and amateur scouting. In hiring Cerfolio, the Cardinals believe they've landed one of baseball's up-and-coming talents in player development. Cerfolio's background and development style are similar to those of top executives, such as Cubs general manager Carter Hawkins, Twins president of baseball operations Derek Falvey, and Blue Jays general manager Ross Atkins. In his 3 years with the Guardians, Cerfolio oversaw one of baseball's youngest farm systems, and one of the better ones, mind you. Cerfolio's hiring is expected to be the first of many this winter at the player development level. Chaim Bloom is expected to bring on dozens of new employees as part of his multi-year plan to restore the Cardinals farm system. These roles will range from on-field coordinators and roving staff members to employees who will help utilize new technology that St. Louis does not yet implement. Again, you can find Katie's article on The Athletic. I encourage you to go and do that. Now, my initial thoughts on the hire are pretty positive in the sense that they're getting someone from an organization that has had a lot of success with player development, with their pitching. Developing pitching obviously has been huge for them throughout the years. It's an area that the Cardinals have fallen short in, both of those, whether it's pitchers, just player development in general. They've been falling short in it. They fell behind the times. We don't have to rehash this. We all know what happened, that it's just they got complacent, decided to spend money in different areas. Instead of all of that, now they're going for it. They're going into the player development stuff, and they're going to spend money in it and really, really pay attention to it and overhaul things in the organization. Okay. My next thought was, my God, is this dude young? I mean, 32 years old. 32 years old. Now, I may seem old to some of our listeners, but to many of them, and I see the analytics and stuff about who's listening to this podcast, many of you are going to feel like I do, that 32 is, oh my goodness, awfully young to be in charge of such a massive job. But I don't think the age it's a bad thing. It's going to catch people off guard. It's going to catch fans off guard because 32 is very, very young to be in charge of stuff like this, specifically in the Cardinals organization, which has always had like that veteran presence about it over the years. But at the same time, this organization, as you can tell, it's in flux. Things are changing. And they were in need of a youthful injection, if you will. For years, it's kind of been the same guys in the same spots, and things got stale. Now that some of these people are moving on, you're seeing the Cardinals get more aggressive about going after younger people in the business. Chaim Bloom, Cerfolio. As much as people don't like him, Ollie Marmol's still 38 years old. It's not like he's some old fart that got hired and's only got a couple of seasons left in him. You know, the Cincinnati Reds, Terry Francona hire. Of course, I think Terry Francona is a great manager. But how much longer is he going to do this? Is this a 1 or 2 year thing and then it's over and they're doing it again? Perhaps the Cardinals are going to have to look for a new manager if things don't work out this year. I don't know. But it sounds like Ollie's got their backing and stuff, and they won't have to change managers. But it's a youthful thing that is going on with this organization. They're getting younger. They're getting younger, and they're doing it pretty quick. It's a changing of the guard. And you're also seeing them getting guys from organizations that do more with less. And what I mean by that is Chaim Bloom. Yeah, he was with the Red Sox, but most people know about him and his success and his work with the Tampa Bay Rays. Cerfolio coming from the Guardians. We're talking about smaller markets, smaller payrolls, but a lot of success. Now, does this mean the Cardinals are going to dip their payroll to like $100 million, which is kind of the happy medium between the Rays and the Guardians right now? No, I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't think it's going to drop that drastically. But the idea of doing more with less is smart business. The idea of developing your own talent instead of having to overpay for someone else's is what they're shooting for. That's the goal. That's the goal. And unfortunately, it's going to take some time to get that machine up and running the way they want it to. So am I saying the Cardinals are going to be crap and suck for the next few years? No, I'm not saying that. I'm sure they'll still put a competitive team on the field, but you're not going to see them spending money like they used to, or even approaching what your two World Series teams are doing, like the Yankees and the Dodgers and the Mets and the Phillies and all the money that they just throw around. They're not going to go about it that way. They're going to go about it a different way. And hopefully it works. I think people appreciate that they're finally picking a lane. They're not just kind of stuck in the middle anymore. They're not like, well, we can kind of spend money, or, well, we kind of want to use young players. They're like, all right, we're cool. We're not getting into this business anymore where we're going to go buy the high price talent. We will fill spots with free agency and complement our younger players. That's the idea. And that's how it's supposed to work. You're not supposed to go buy a whole new team every year. Only a few of those organizations have the money to do something like that. The Cardinals aren't going to be that team. They're not going to be that team. So if you ever thought they were going to, better get over that real quick. One final hire was made. Former Cardinal outfielder John Jay joining the staff as well. We'll discuss it next on Locked On Cardinals. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Now, sometime you'll be watching a game and you sense a trend happening. You get that hunch, you're like, what? I got a hunch that something's going to happen here. There's going to be a home run or a long pass play, or you're going to see somebody hit a bunch of threes, or, I feel like the power play is going to click tonight. Something like any of those things, whatever sport you're watching, you're going to be able to, if that hunch comes on, you're going to be able to take advantage of that hunch when you're on the FanDuel app. Because on the one page, this is not, so you're not moving around, you're not browsing, you're not lost trying to find the spot. All of it's going to be right there on one page, where you're going to get the latest stats, you're going to get the live play-by-play, and so much more right there on the same page. So when that hunch hits, you can place your bet right there. It just makes life a whole lot easier when you're watching games. NBA regular season opens up tonight. You got two games. You got, Knicks at Celtics. And then is it Minnesota at the Lakers? I know it's the Lakers, but NBA opens up tonight. The Blues are on tonight. You get a break from football for an evening. And you can get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's guaranteed, by the way, when you place your first $5 bet with FanDuel. That's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On MLB. Baseball guru Sully brings a daily blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on every aspect of the World Series. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So, former Cardinals outfielder and World Series champion, you remember him from back with that 2011 team. There he is. The one and only John Jay. He is back in the fold with the Cardinals, will be a member of Ollie Marmol's coaching staff this year. Spent the last 2 seasons with another former Cardinal, Skip Schumacher, with the Marlins as their first base coach and the outfield coach with them. He will now be responsible for outfield defense, but will also have exposure to other elements as well. That, according to John Mozeliak in his press conference today. Willie McGee, who was an assistant coach on the staff, was always working with outfielders. He did base running. He helped with hitting. He did jack of all trades for Willie McGee. He's going to move up to the front office and take on an advisory role. Now, this is not, I know when it first popped and it was told that Willie McGee was no longer going to be with the staff, some people were like, no, not Willie. Well, Willie's not getting demoted. This is not a bad thing. According to Mo, it's going to allow Willie more flexibility in his life and with the organization. I mentioned this when the announcement was made. I was like, at his age, probably doesn't really want to be on the road as much as a Major League Baseball team is, which is one of the reasons why, when they tried to hire Matt Holliday and he was kind of like, it's kind of a grind, man. I don't know if I'm up for it yet. That's the hard part about it all. When people bring up Jim Edmonds as being a hitting coach, I'm like, I don't feel like he wants to do that and be on the road all the time. Well, these are the guys that, they want to be helpful. They want to be advisors and stuff, but they don't want to have to, I don't have to put a uniform on again and be in the clubhouse and on the road for, 100 days out of the year, whatever it is. It's not easy. So Mo mentioned that Willie would probably be visiting some of the minor league cities throughout the year, going to those teams, and I'm sure we'll see him at spring training as well, and I'm sure he'll be around the ballpark at times, but just won't have to be down in the dugout each and every day. So essentially, Jay, who is younger, will slide into Willie McGee's role. So again, it's more of that youthful transition that's going on and taking place throughout the organization. Mo also mentioned in his press conference when asked whether he'd spoken with any players about the direction of the team following the last press conference, where it was the end of season, where they were talking about the reset and whatnot. And he did say that he had some conversations and that more conversations were to come with the players, and that the direction that we're going to be going is going to be creating some opportunities for our younger players. So he didn't say in detail that, yeah, we're trading a bunch of people away and we're going young. He didn't say that exactly. But at the same time, it's not like this team is just littered with old people, So I can only assume that what he's implying there is that the guys that we've brought up before, the Nolan Arenado, Wilson Contreras, Sonny Gray, Miles Michaelis, Steven Matz, veterans who are pricey, are well aware of what's going on with this team and with this franchise right now. And specifically those first 3 guys who have no trade clauses, and Arenado, Contreras, and Gray, that they've probably been spoken to and said, look, you need to make a decision on if this is something you want to be around while we do this, while we make this transition, while we do this reset. Do you want to be around for this? Do you want to stay in St. Louis for this? Or are you open to being moved this offseason? Would you like to go somewhere else? Is there something else we can do that would make life better for you? Because I don't think there's any ill will about this, but it is a business. And these guys are human beings. And, like in Arenado's case, he still has not won a ring. Would he be interested in going to LA to try to pick one of those up, to go play with Shohei and stuff? Would he rather do that than be in St. Louis while they try to put this thing back together? Wilson Contreras, what's his future? You got 2 catchers on the roster. Are we keeping 3? Are we trading? Are you trading one of the young guys so that Contreras can keep playing? Or are we doing something else? Is Contreras going to make a move over to first base for a little bit? These are things that you got to think about. Sonny Gray, obviously, coming to St. Louis was a big deal. He wanted to be close to his family. Is there somewhere else that you'd be happier playing right now that's might be a more of a contender for the next 2 years compared to what the Cardinals are going to be doing? Decisions they have to make. Mo did say, more to come after the World Series, and we'll find out we'll find out. As we said, this offseason is going to be an interesting one for the St. Louis Cardinals. So leave your comments, suggestions, and whatnot in the comment section down below on YouTube. Hit me up on Twitter X if you want to give me any feedback on today's episode. Again, thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. If you haven't already, give us a follow on Twitter X at @LO_Cardinals and at JD Sports Radio. Like, subscribe on YouTube, and help our channel and our love for the Cardinals grow. You guys are the best fans in baseball for a reason, and I'll see you next time on Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals,